One of life's great lessons is how to cultivate and how to implement humility in your life. Too often, folks have a very high self opinion of themselves. They think of themselves more highly than they ought to think. But I think we ought to cultivate humility because a proud person, an arrogant person, has a tendency of turning other people off, of always being self promoting and always keeping the conversation centered on themselves. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, a best-selling book on the New York Times bestseller list was on the number one list for weeks. And the first line of the book was, "It's not all about you." You and I have met people that it is all about them. They can't change the subject, they won't change their mind, and the subject is always about them, their vacation, their job, their sports, their golf game, their rentals, their everything. And it has a tendency of putting people off. We appreciate humility. I think one of the great things about humility is we don't always have to talk about ourselves. We can let other people talk. We can let other people enjoy the conversation. And it's refreshing to hear a point of view from other people. You know, the great poet has said, "Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time, footprints that perhaps another sailing over life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother seeing shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait." We can make our lives sublime. We need to cultivate humility. We need to realize that every gift that you and I have is a gift from our Creator, a gift from the God who made us. And therefore, we have nothing to boast about because we didn't do it ourselves. If we have a talent that we have been able to enhance, that we've been able to refine, then the teacher, the person instructing us, needs to get the credit as well. So there's really not a whole lot that we can add to the subject of humility or how great we are, because we're really not. We're a product of many things that have gone on before us. When I think about the lessons that we learn, when I think about some of the things that we do, I want to show you a short clip of my time in Washington, D.C. with a student group. We're in Arlington National Cemetery, and it's about the humility of one person who very well could have boasted about all that he did, could have had a monument to all that he did, but rather he wanted to be known for one thing. Will you just take a few minutes and watch this short clip about one of our national heroes, a true treasure, Mike Mansfield? All right, so you come here and the first sign that you notice says, "Welcome to Arlington National Cemetery, our nation's most sacred shrine." At the bottom it says, "Please remember these are hallowed grounds." So as we go through here, I want you to realize that every single headstone that you see represents a father, a son, a brother, a dad, a daughter, a mom, a sister, who paid the ultimate price so that you and I can have the freedoms that we enjoy. One writer said, "Driving by Arlington National Cemetery, I'm reminded of the cost of freedom. Those who sacrificed everything, invested in freedom for my family and yours, so that we can all choose to live our lives where we choose to live them, and to worship where and whenever and how we please. These are freedoms most of the world can only dream about." You will find glimpses of humility here in Washington, D.C. at Arlington National Cemetery. I think maybe more than just glimpses. Every single person was humble enough to put on the uniform for the United States military, to come under their authority, and to do what needed to be done. So there's a man by the name of Mike Mansfield He was born in 1903. He was born in Brooklyn, New York. When he was 14 years old, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He fudged his birth date. He gets stationed on the USS Minneapolis. And while he's on the USS Minneapolis, another sailor looks at him and says, "Boy, how old are you?" He said, 15. He said, "You can't be 15 and be in the U.S. Navy." And he gets drummed out. So he waits till he's a little bit older. He joins the U.S. Marine Corps and serves in the Corps for 2 years. And then after he's in the Corps for 2 years, he gets out and he serves in the Army for 2 years. And then his family moves to Montana, where he works in a men's clothing store, a haberdashery. And in 1942, he's going to run for the lone U.S. representative seat from Montana, and he wins. He becomes a congressman from Montana. And he holds that seat from 1942 to 1954, and he runs for Senate in 1954, and he wins. He's sworn in as a U.S. Senator in 1955. He is a Democrat. The Democrats are in power. He becomes the Senate Majority Leader. He's the longest serving Senate Majority Leader in U.S. history. After he retires from the Senate in 1977, Jimmy Carter appoints him as our ambassador to Japan, and he serves as our longest serving ambassador to Japan. He gets brought back to the United States and he's given the Medal of Freedom, the highest award that any civilian can get in the United States. So think about his credentials: U.S. Navy, U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Army, U.S. Representative, U.S. Senator, Senate Majority Leader, longest serving Senate Majority Leader, ambassador to Japan, and then Medal of Freedom winner. If he had lived in any other country, they would have named a city block after him. They would have made a monument to him. But when Mike Mansfield died in 2001, what's the one thing he wants you to think about when you look at his headstone? What's on his headstone?
Marine Corps.
Private, U.S. Marine. He wore the uniform. Again, it's not who I am, it's whose I am. I think that shows a lot of humility. You know, when Paul writes his letter to the Romans, he says, "Paul, a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ, a bondservant, a slave of the Lord Jesus Christ." Paul was willing to say, "I'm willing to be a slave for the Lord." My challenge to young people always is this: you're going to serve somebody. Let's serve the Lord with humility.